All right, let me make sure. Let me see if it's on YouTube right now. We are live. This is your professor, Dr. Sean Clavel. This is week 3 of Anatomy and Physiology. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I just want to go over the main topics of week 3, what we're looking forward into the next couple of weeks here, give you guys an idea of what we have coming up in the next semester, as well as, next couple of weeks, as well as what we have planned out here, or some of the things that we've already reviewed. So, in week 3, the big main topics we're going over here relate to. Let me see if I can just chemistry and cells, right? Cell biology, uh, m- microbiology. That's the big topics alluded to. Chapter 2 is chemistry. Chapter 3, cell biology. The big things that we'll be going over here. Let's take I'm going to make it a different color here for you. Mm, I like that blue color there. Let me show you your canvas here. We pull up the canvas. It's particularly for my online classes, so we'll zoom into that first. Modules, we'll start by looking here in the modules, or even take a look at your schedule. Here in the schedule, you'll see we're in week 3. So again, we're focusing here on uh, we're focusing in on, chapters 2, chapter 3. Next week, again, we'll finish up a little bit more, chapter 3, cell biology. But the focus, the labs here on the side, we're working on that microscope lab after we did anatomical directions and some of the other components there. But we're focusing here on the microscope lab. We've got chapter 2 and 3, the chemical and cellular levels of organization. We'll get into that. And then by the end of the week, next week, we'll have our exam, which is up there for you. Go to your modules, and my online class, we've already went over the introduction to the human body, right? The chapter 1. Chapter 2 here, we've got the exam. It'll be due by the end of next week. The chemical and cellular level of organization. Chapter 2 is the chemical level of organization. Chapter 3, the cellular level of organization. We've got our microscope and cell cytology labs associated with that. Don't forget there's some extra credit that's still open there for the rest of those guys that still want to get that the few extra points. I think there's about 15 or 20 points associated with that extra credit. And so you might be asking, okay, what are the main topics that we're talking about as it relates to perhaps chemistry and cell biology, right? So let's take a look here first at chapter 2, which is chemistry. And really, it's broken up into 2 parts, right? The first part is what we might call your basic chemistry. All right, there we have it for you. Your basic chemistry, and that includes, oh, where'd that go? That includes things like atoms and elements, subatomic particles. Remember those subatomic particles? You got protons, neutrons, and electrons. Right? What are those? What do they do? And what is their characteristic? And then particularly as it relates to some of these atoms and elements, of the human body, right? And we're talking here carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. As well, what else did we talk about here in some of those? Oh, bonds, right? The next part here is chemical bonds. And so when we talk about these chemical bonds, we're talking about, let me see if I can't make that just a snap bigger for you there. There we go. We've got ionic bonds, and that is where ions come together in equal parts, often result in a salt. An ionic bond there, right? We have covalent bonds. You can have a polar and non-polar covalent bond. And so those are going to be, let me hit one more time here. And then hydrogen bonds. Let's say hydrogen bonds as well. Let's add hydrogen. As well. Right? Put it in the middle? No, sorry. And so that's the basic chemistry part, right? First part of chapter 2. We'll talk a little bit more about chapter 2 here in the second part, where we talked about primarily the biochemistry or the biology chemistry here. So when we talk about that, we talk about there we go, biochemistry. And so when we talk about biochemistry, there's organic and inorganic compounds, molecules, macromolecules. But this is where we talk about carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. Right. In organic compounds, we primarily talk about two things: water and electrolytes. Again, the importance of electrolytes is that allow for true chemical gradient in and out of the cell. Right? And so we're thinking about for an electrochemical gradient in and out of the cell. So the idea that there's a number of different let me just draw it up here while I'm here, right? So like in the I'm better typing than anything. So in the extracellular fluid, that means on the outside of the cell. And then on the inside of the cell, it's often referred to as the intracellular fluid, right? And then, so let's just draw a little line here, and this will be our cell membrane. So you can see here, in the extracellular fluid, there's going to be a high, and this is what it's denoted here, high concentration concentration denoted by those two brackets of sodium Na plus right there, right? In the intracellular fluid, there is a high concentration of potassium. These are both electrolytes, right? If they are accumulating in large amounts, they can actually create a charge. And so these electrolytes have a chemical gradient. The chemical gradient is that there is a high concentration in the extracellular fluid of sodium. If it were gonna move to its nature, or towards its natural state of being, it would try and even out, so the sodium would try and rush into the cell. The opposite would occur in potassium. There's a high concentration of potassium inside of the cell, and as a result, if we were to open all the channels, that potassium would then rush out of the cell. And so that's kind of the big things. And then water's got a number of different special properties that you should know. And then some, when it comes to these different organic molecules, here's the big thing that I want you guys to take away. So when it comes to the organic compounds, let's just put it right here. So function. What is its function? So like your carbohydrates, right, is an energy source. Proteins primarily give the cell its uniqueness. Whatever protein is built by that cell is what defines that cell. Whether it's your hair and skin cells, your muscle cells, it's the proteins that give that cell its uniqueness. Lipids or fats give some energy, but also give protection, or like in the case of the cell membrane, it is primarily a phospholipid membrane, so it gives protection and structure. And then your nucleic acids, DNA, RNA, and ATP. So DNA is found inside of the nucleus, RNA is found inside of the cytosol, and it helps to build a protein. And then finally, the ATP is your energy currency of the cell. It travels really well throughout the cell and outside of the cell membrane, and provides energy through their high energy bonds, chemical energy through high energy bonds, to allow for cell activity to occur. So the function, the location. That's what I was thinking. Location. Where is it found, right? So your carbohydrates are stored in your body in the liver and in the muscle cells as glycogen. It's also found in glucose, right? Blood glucose. So it's found in your blood as glucose. Proteins are found all throughout the cells, pretty much everywhere, right? Proteins are the most diverse and ubiquitous, meaning everywhere, organic molecule in the cell. The lipids, fats, they're seen again in cell membranes, the phospholipid cell membrane, but also lining the organs of the body. And nucleic acids, DNA inside of the nucleus, RNA inside of the cytosol, and ATP all over. Then finally give some examples of each of them. So carbohydrates is, as we mentioned, glucose, glycogen are two different forms. Glucose is the very simple sugar form. Glycogen is the densely packed storage form of sugar. Proteins are enzymes, right? Proteins are everywhere. So thinking about examples of proteins, but also knowing that proteins can have different structural arrangements. And that structural arrangement goes through a pretty common pattern. That's the protein structure of a the structure of a protein, the 3D structure of that protein. And then the lipids. Lipids are phospholipids. They're most often seen in the body as triglycerides. So take a look at what a triglyceride is. And we talked about those nucleic acids, right? Where DNA is an example of a nucleic acid, RNA is an example of a nucleic acid, and ATP is an example of a nucleic acid. So being able to identify the function, the location, and an example of each of these is going to be important. And then again, we talked about the special characteristics of water and electrolytes. We'll talk a little bit more about chapter 3 in the next week, but I can give you but I can give you a little bit of a hint here. It starts off with a little bit of the where's my slide? Here it is. There it is. So it starts, cell biology starts with a little bit of cell membrane. We talk about some active and passive transport systems. We also talk a little bit about I'm thinking about what's related to the cell membranes. You get to that part. Yeah, let's just keep going. Let's go back. You'll figure it out. The organelles, the nucleus, and other organelles. So when I talk about the nucleus and other organelles, like so like a big one might be the mitochondria, lysosomes, rough and smooth, endoplasmic, reticulum, and let me pick one more. I'm blanking out. Rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, lysosomes, peroxisomes. Oh, so the what are they called? Structures that give cell its cytoskeletal structures. So protein, right? Again, one of the protein structures that give the cell membrane its, or give the cell itself its structure, right? We also talk about cell life and cell replication. So cell cycle and cell, and well, we'll just say mitosis, protein structure, protein synthesis. So yeah, that's pretty much chapter 3 in a nutshell. So taking a look there, and you'll see that in the chapters as we go through here. So again, as we continue to focus on some of the more basic biology concepts, and then we'll get it back into the more specific stuff. So getting into tissues into the next chapter here, where we talk specifically about different collections of cells, and there's really 4 major categories of tissues, and they then fall into subcategories which are a little bit more expansive. So again, we'll take a look at that here into the next couple of weeks. But first, I wanted to go over the chapters 2, chapter 3. Again, you've got a couple of lab assignments there and an extra credit assignment to finish up before the exam at the end of next week. All right, it's about 20, so let me keep it short there. Uh, let's just encourage you guys to keep working hard as I see that you are doing. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, continue to send me the emails, and I will be in touch, guys. Thank you again. Have a wonderful week as we finish up. Oh, sorry, where am I? Week 3 of the semester, chemistry and cell biology.